On a warm evening in Phoenix, Arizona, a crowd of supporters gathered to hear a familiar voice. Charlie Kirk, a young but powerful conservative figure, was scheduled to speak on campus issues, political activism, and what he often called the fight for America's future. The energy in the room was electric. Attendees waved flags, snapped selfies, and leaned forward, eager to hear his words. But within minutes, that energy turned to chaos. At approximately 8:37 p.m., gunfire rang out. A hush of confusion lasted only seconds before the audience erupted in panic. People ducked under chairs, others screamed, and phones lit up the darkened auditorium as frantic 911 calls flooded emergency lines. Security rushed the stage, but it was too late. Charlie Kirk had been struck, fatally. The man who had built his career on stirring political conversation, who had drawn thousands of young conservatives to rallies, who had debated endlessly on TV screens, was now the center of America's darkest headlines. Charlie Kirk assassinated. Shockwaves across the nation. The news broke like wildfire. Within minutes, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube exploded with speculation. Some claimed they saw the gunman slip out of the back doors. Others posted shaky videos, their captions screaming, "Charlie Kirk has been shot." For supporters, disbelief set in. How could such a public figure, constantly surrounded by security, be taken down in seconds? For critics, the political implications were immediately clear. This was more than a crime, it was an act of political violence. Cable news anchors struggled to keep up with the developing story. By midnight, every major network had cut into programming with live updates. Who killed Charlie Kirk? They asked. Why was he targeted? The country demanded answers, but for now, all anyone had were questions. Trump's cryptic reaction. By the following morning, the most unexpected twist came not from investigators, but from former President Donald Trump. Speaking at a private fundraiser, Trump briefly addressed Kirk's death, calling it a terrible tragedy. But then came the line that left reporters buzzing. "I know more than they're saying right now. You'll see soon enough. Big things are coming." Within minutes, Trump's comments hit the news cycle. Was this a hint about the killer's identity? Was he suggesting insider knowledge? Or was it a political move designed to keep his base energized? No one knew, but the statement added fuel to an already raging fire of speculation. The suspect slips away. Meanwhile, law enforcement revealed little. All that was confirmed was that a suspect had been identified and was on the run. Eyewitnesses described a man in dark clothing, moving quickly out the side doors after the shooting. By dawn, police launched a nationwide manhunt. Roadblocks were set up across Arizona highways. Helicopters scanned desert roads. The FBI was called in, labeling the case not just a homicide, but potentially an act of domestic terrorism. For investigators, time was running out. Every hour the suspect remained free raised the stakes. Would he strike again? America holds its breath. In households across the country, Americans tuned in anxiously. The murder of Charlie Kirk was not just about the death of one man. It was a story that touched on the deepest fears about political polarization, security, and the fragility of democracy. Friends described Kirk as passionate, outspoken, and unafraid of controversy. Supporters said he inspired them to take action, to speak boldly. Detractors accused him of fueling division. But no matter what side you stood on, one truth was undeniable. His assassination had shaken the nation to its core. The hours following Charlie Kirk's assassination felt less like the aftermath of a crime and more like the unraveling of a nation's nerves. As dawn broke over Phoenix, the facts were scarce. The gunman was gone, the motive unknown, and the timeline still murky. Yet the vacuum of information was quickly filled, not by investigators but by speculation. Social media erupts. On Twitter, hashtags like #JusticeForKirk, #PoliticalViolence, and #WhoKilledCharlie trended simultaneously. Supporters flooded feeds with tributes, while critics clashed with them, debating whether Kirk's rhetoric had invited danger. But beyond the grief and anger, darker whispers began circulating. Some claimed the shooter was a radical leftist acting out of hatred for Kirk's politics. Others suggested a false flag, orchestrated to inflame tensions ahead of the upcoming election. Fringe accounts even accused the government of involvement, fueling paranoia about deep state operations. The noise grew so loud that even mainstream outlets began addressing it. Not because the theories were credible, but because they were shaping public perception. The Trump factor. Donald Trump's cryptic remark, "I know more than they're saying right now," only poured gasoline on the fire. What did he know? Was the shooter politically motivated? Did Trump's campaign have inside information? Or was this simply classic Trump showmanship designed to keep attention on himself? Pundits spent hours dissecting his words, creating headlines that fanned the flames. Trump suggests insider knowledge of Kirk's killer. Ex-president drops hint in murder investigation. Did Trump know the suspect? For supporters, Trump's statement was proof that he had his finger on the pulse of the investigation. For critics, it was reckless, dangerous, and potentially obstructive. Either way, it ensured the assassination wasn't just a crime story, it was now a political earthquake. Investigators under pressure. Behind the scenes, detectives worked frantically. Phone records, surveillance footage, and witness statements were analyzed in real time. But every official update was cautious, careful, and incomplete. The lack of clarity frustrated the public and enraged Kirk's supporters, who accused law enforcement of hiding something. At press conferences, reporters shouted questions. Do you have a suspect in custody? Is this politically motivated? Was Donald Trump briefed ahead of the public? Each time, officials sidestepped, insisting they were following the evidence and working every lead. But the public wasn't buying it. The absence of answers only deepened suspicion. Conspiracy theories take root. Within 24 hours, YouTube and TikTok were flooded with amateur videos claiming to solve the case. Grainy images of the shooter circled in red. Claims of multiple gunmen. Theories that Kirk's death had been staged altogether. One viral post declared, "This wasn't a random act. This was a message." And perhaps that's what made the case so chilling. Whether or not the crime was politically motivated, it was being perceived as such. Every theory hardened America's divisions, setting the stage for unrest. Fear across the political spectrum. As the chaos spread, fear set in. College campuses tightened security. Conservative leaders demanded extra protection at rallies. Parents warned their children to stay away from political events. For decades, assassinations of public figures had seemed like relics of a more violent era. But now, after Kirk's death, Americans were asking themselves, could this be the start of a new wave? A nation on edge. While investigators quietly tracked their suspect across state lines, the public narrative spun out of control. America wasn't just waiting for an arrest, it was bracing for what that arrest might mean. Would the killer be tied to a political movement? Would Trump's hint be vindicated? Or would the truth only deepen the chaos? By the end of the first 24 hours, the only certainty was uncertainty. The killer was still out there, the theories were multiplying, and the country was holding its breath. The chase was about to begin. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. The nation was already shaken by the shocking murder of political commentator Charlie Kirk. But what followed in the hours after the attack was nothing short of a high-stakes thriller that played out in real time, leaving millions glued to their screens. Police quickly identified a prime suspect, described as a man in his late 20s with military-style training and a history of online radicalization. According to law enforcement, this was no random act. It was calculated, targeted, and executed with chilling precision. Within minutes of the attack, the suspect fled the scene, triggering what became one of the most intense 30-hour manhunts in recent American history. Helicopters circled overhead, drones were deployed, and checkpoints sprang up across highways. News outlets provided round-the-clock updates, amplifying the sense of urgency. Eyewitnesses reported seeing the suspect moving through suburban neighborhoods, sometimes ditching his car to travel on foot, other times doubling back to throw off officers. He was armed, dangerous, and desperate. The chase was not only a pursuit of justice, it was a battle to prevent further bloodshed. Social media exploded with speculation. Hashtags like hashtag Kirk Killer Manhunt and hashtag Justice for Charlie trended across platforms, with amateur sleuths trying to predict the suspect's next move. Some even broadcast live updates from areas where police activity was spotted, turning the chase into a digital manhunt watched by millions. Meanwhile, tensions were building in Washington. Former President Donald Trump made cryptic statements during a press briefing, hinting that he knew more about the case than the media was telling. His remarks fueled speculation. Was there a political motive? Was the killer connected to larger extremist groups? The chase intensified when the suspect allegedly attempted to hijack a vehicle at a rural gas station. Police swarmed the area, but he slipped away again, disappearing into dense woods. For hours, the nation held its breath as the chase stretched from city streets to the wilderness, echoing a Hollywood movie plot. But behind the drama, there was a chilling reality. A killer on the loose, a community in fear, and a country demanding answers. Every update brought a mix of relief and dread. Relief that police were closing in, dread at the possibility of another violent confrontation. The 30-hour manhunt wasn't just a pursuit of one man. It was a test of America's security systems, law enforcement coordination, and the public's ability to remain calm in the face of fear. And when the suspect was finally cornered, the arrest shocked everyone watching. After more than 30 hours of chaos and fear, the manhunt for Charlie Kirk's killer reached its dramatic climax. Police, federal agents, and local SWAT teams had been working in shifts, covering highways, rural roads, and wooded areas. The suspect was skilled at evasion, slipping through surveillance grids and abandoning vehicles just before officers closed in. But time and exhaustion were not on his side. The breakthrough came when a tipster reported seeing a man matching the suspect's description moving near an abandoned barn just outside the city. The area had been searched earlier, but new drone footage confirmed movement inside the structure. Within minutes, a massive police presence surrounded the site. Negotiators were called in, and for several tense hours, authorities tried to persuade the suspect to surrender. But he remained defiant, allegedly shouting political slogans and warning that the fight isn't over. His words only fueled speculation about whether this was a personal vendetta, a politically motivated attack, or part of a broader extremist agenda. Former President Donald Trump's earlier hint suddenly came back into focus. In a press statement, Trump had said, "You'll be surprised when you find out who's really pulling the strings." This cryptic remark sparked a media storm. Some analysts claimed Trump knew more than he let on. Others accused him of fueling conspiracy theories. But one fact was undeniable. Trump's words kept the case in the national spotlight, ensuring the suspect's capture played out under intense scrutiny. As night fell, tactical teams moved in. Equipped with flashbangs, night vision, and armored vehicles, they stormed the barn in a high-risk raid broadcast live on multiple networks. Millions of viewers watched in real time as the suspect was dragged out in handcuffs, disheveled but alive. The arrest sparked both relief and new questions. Why had the suspect targeted Charlie Kirk? Did he act alone, or was he connected to a larger group? Was Trump's hint a warning, or a distraction? Inside the barn, investigators recovered chilling evidence. Maps of Kirk's known travel routes, encrypted messages on a burner phone, and what appeared to be a manifesto. These discoveries suggested that the killing was no impulsive act but part of a meticulously planned operation. The capture ended the chase but opened a new chapter of national debate. Political pundits clashed on air, with some arguing the murder was a result of rising extremism, while others warned against jumping to conclusions before the investigation was complete. The arrest of Charlie Kirk's killer ended the chase, but it was only the beginning of a storm that shook America. As the suspect sat in custody, investigators worked around the clock to piece together his motives, connections, and the chilling manifesto found inside the abandoned barn. The documents revealed a disturbing picture. The suspect had allegedly been radicalized online, consuming hours of extremist content and posting anonymous threats under fake accounts. He meticulously tracked Kirk's movements for weeks, studying his travel patterns and public events. The manifesto pointed to a toxic mix of political obsession, resentment, and delusion. Court filings later revealed that the suspect had reached out to fringe groups in the months leading up to the murder. Though no direct ties to a larger organization were confirmed, investigators warned that his writings showed clear signs of inspiration from extremist ideologies. Meanwhile, the country was reeling. Charlie Kirk's death was mourned by supporters and critics alike as a sign that America's political divisions had reached a breaking point. Memorials, vigils, and nationwide debates filled the airwaves. Questions of safety, free speech, and political violence dominated conversations at every level, from Congress to college campuses. And then, there was Trump's cryptic hint. His remark, "You'll be surprised when you find out who's really pulling the strings," continued to fuel speculation. Some believed he had insider knowledge of the investigation. Others saw it as an attempt to frame the narrative and keep control of the political conversation. The FBI declined to comment on whether Trump had any special insight, leaving the public to wonder, did he know something we didn't? The trial that followed was one of the most closely watched in years. Prosecutors painted the suspect as a cold, calculated killer who weaponized ideology into violence. The defense argued mental illness and delusion. The courtroom was packed, not just with media and spectators, but with a nation desperate for answers. In the end, the case became larger than Charlie Kirk or his killer. It was a mirror reflecting America's struggles. The rise of online radicalization, the spread of conspiracy theories, and the deadly consequences of unchecked extremism. For many, Kirk's death was not just a tragedy but a turning point. It forced Americans to ask difficult questions. How did the divisions grow so deep? How safe are public figures in today's climate? And most importantly, how do we stop political disagreements from spiraling into deadly violence? The killer now sits behind bars, but the wounds remain open. And Trump's words, whether hint, warning, or mere provocation, still echo across the country.